vacation? You were supposed to give a report.
I was here yesterday.
I missed today, too.
Yesterday.
Did you?
I missed it too. I mean,
Oh, I missed today. I seen Judy wasn't here,
Yeah,
so I
you-
didn't go.
I got here late. I was late, so. Okay, Sherry, you ready? Let's go ahead, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Administration Operations Committee meeting, Tuesday, May 29th, 2018, 7 p.m. Hydrich,
Here.
Holtmeyer,
Here?
Moheski, Patke,
Here.
Pettit. Here. Scornia,
Here.
Solentrup.
Here.
Waterman. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will all the committee members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the meeting dated April 23rd, 2018? Hydrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Moheski. Patke.
Yes.
Pettit. Yes. Scornia.
Yes.
Solentrup.
Yes.
Having read the minutes, are there any comments or questions? Any corrections?
Not, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Hydrich, to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated April 23, 2018. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Report of Department Heads, Public Safety, Police, and Traffic Committee.
Chief?
Good evening. I don't have a lot for you today. With the uptick in warmer weather, we get the usual increase in fights and domestics and people that have a little too much to drink and drive. There's also a hot batch of heroin running around in the county. We've had 3 overdoses in 2 weeks, and this is some pretty potent stuff. They would not be here with us if not for Narcan. The one last Friday wasn't breathing when they got there, so. Otherwise, Memorial Day service down the riverfront was fabulous. It was a great crowd and a great ceremony. And that's really all I have for you. Our 3 new officers are in training, doing fabulous. The 3 that have just started on the road are doing what we expect of them. And we did our first firearms qualification on the new shooting range for the department. We started that today. So.
Good.
And that's looking very nice out there.
Any questions of Chief? Okay, thank you.
Emergency Management.
Did we skip?
They're not here.
Okay.
Good evening. We've had multiple incident action plans for all the special events that have been occurring. Special thanks to PD, as they've been coordinating the majority of them lately. First aid cabinets throughout the city have been restocked. We passed a Franklin County audit on Homeland Security hazmat assets that are housed at the Fire Department Training Center. We had several severe thunderstorm events, 3 including the Art and Wine Fest. In progress, working to get critical first responders on FirstNet, a nationwide phone network that allows preemption for emergency responders when the network is full. Working on a new contract with Charter Spectrum to have all our internet, fiber, and TV services consolidated on one bill at a better price. The EPA will be having a public meeting June 5th, Tuesday at the KFC Hall, lower level. This is regarding proposing placing the old Sporlan Valve plant, number 1 at 611 East 7th, on the national priority list. This would be a path toward cleanup versus the current path that they're doing in that area, which is mitigation, putting in mitigation fans and monitoring. So we've been encouraging our federal legislators to support placing that on the national priority list path. So more information will come at that meeting. We're still working with healthcare facilities and churches on their safety plans. The renumbering of the city hall floors and offices continues. new projects. We're still in the busy season for incident action plans for all the special events in town, and working with the Fair Board on updating the safety plan. Anyone have any questions?
Mark, I have one question. I received an email from a Michelle Neenhuis. Okay, that's legit, or do we need to go through?
That's legit. That's the class for government officials, the ICS class.
Right.
For government officials that you took back in, I guess it was February at the training center.
Right.
So yeah, you can respond to that and get your certificate for that.
Okay.
That is legit.
Same thing.
Yeah.
That isn't a phishing email. That's a real honest to goodness one.
Nowadays, we have to ask that first.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Parks and Recreation?
I have one item to report tonight. In your packet, you have the tree inventory that was conducted by Davy Resource Group. As you may recall, we applied for a trim grant this last year, and we received a grant and a little over $22,000 to conduct a survey. They did a survey of over 2,700 trees. These were the formal trees in parks, as well as some of our parking lots and other public facilities. We ranked overall in the good category, and in the categories you have excellent, good, fair, poor, critical, or dead, so being rated good, we're in pretty good shape. There was nothing in here that was really earth-shattering to us. It just kind of backed up what we had already noticed through the Urban Forestry Council and our staff. The only critical thing here is they suggest a removal of 80 trees because they fall in more of a critical condition, those 80 trees. But other than that, everything turned out very well. Also, as part of this inventory, we do have a computer program that goes with it, so we can keep track of when we remove trees, add trees, do pruning the trees, or any kind of care to tree, so we can keep an ongoing record of that. Anybody have any questions of the tree inventory?
Speaking of trees, some of your equipment broke down or something because we had trees laying in the park system for months.
No, what happened to that, that was also part of this, as part of the trim grant, that they said those are the 3 most critical trees, so we had to cut them down by May 3rd. We were going to go back to do that, but with weather as well as other projects that we had to pull people off and mowing, as you know, grass is growing like crazy. We had to attend to those. We're hoping to get back to that in the next week or so to get those removed.
I got something, I'm assuming this would be in your department, and this was a suggestion by somebody, the general public. During the sunset on the riverfront, the trash cans get full, and then it just compounds. I mean, it just builds and builds and builds.
That is the responsibility of downtown Washington to, it is their event. They are supposed to empty the trash and put it into the dumpsters.
During the event as well?
During the event,
Okay, that's fine.
yeah.
Fine.
We do not staff that. that
Well,
event.
it's after hours. I didn't
Right.
figure any way that you could staff it.
Right,
So you've made arrangements. That's all I need.
Yep.
I can pass that on.
thank you.
On the same token, if they ask for a few more trash cans, we have those available.
We have to steal from another park to make it available, but yes, we
They could.
And we
really,
have not
essentially, that's what
received
needs to
any,
happen first.
we haven't received any such requests from them for
Okay.
any additional, but we can make that happen. I also have April's monthly report in there, in your packet, if you have any questions or comments on that.
How did the bids turn out, Darren? On, you had package A, I think packet A, and then packet B.
Oh, on the roofing?
Yeah.
Well, this is through the insurance, as we had the hail and wind damage last year, so we put out several packages. Package A turned out really well. Actually, I received a contract back today from the contractor, so we will be getting a notice to proceed out to start work on that, and that is for the riverfront. We've also gone out for package B and package C. The bids look pretty good. Right now, we're working with the insurance company because the bids came in a little bit higher than what they were going to give us, and so they're reevaluating that. So once we get that reevaluation, we'll be able to move forward and bring it to a council meeting for the approval of those bids.
So there was more than one bid on those? Because
Yes.
the first package, it was
I
only
think you
one
had
bid.
4 different packages?
Actually, in total, there will be 5. There's 3 out. There should be another one going out this week, and then the last one will be on 2 firehouses and in the library, because they're more of a commercial type roof.
What do you get, Mark? More than one bid per packet on this, is that right?
Yes, we've received about 2 bids on each packet.
Yeah, on the first packet as well.
Yeah.
On the first packet, it was just one.
There was 2 bids, only one was a qualifying
Right.
bid.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Community and Economic Development and Planning, website rebuild.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the website rebuild. We've been kind of talking about this for well over a year, just kind of updating our website and see what, right now we're hosted on govoffice.com, and we're kind of looking at their options to see what kind of updates we could do with not only the Washmill Works site, but the city website as well. And about a month ago, when I was at one of those classes, I was introduced to a company called Golden Shovel that actually has an arm of the industry that specializes in economic development websites, that has some tools on, that they add some tools to the website that can help economic developers and connecting you with site selectors and that type of things. So in speaking with them, we found out that they also have dealt with just regular city websites and government websites as well. And we thought, well, since we're putting the budget together, let's go ahead and get a figure in there and go out to bid to have both websites completely redesigned, rebuilt, and get a new domain as well as a different company to host and manage the website. So we did have one webinar with that specific industry, company, to let them know we were interested in kind of see what they could provide, but let them know that we would have to go out to bid. It looks like to have all of those services, not just the hosting, the rebuild, the design, but also to have some social media management from them, as well as some consulting. It's about $25,000 for both websites. And so we have that range right now proposed in the budget. And what we'll do is this summer we'll go out for bid and see what we can get from, local companies or companies, whoever wants to put in a proposal and see if it's somewhere in that range, and then we'll hopefully do it in the first part of the next budget year. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up, so if we get those bids back, we don't see some sticker shock for $25,000. That was the first, for the list of things we wanted to have done, that was the first proposal that we saw. So, and other than that, normal monthly items. We did close, well, I guess this isn't normal, we closed on lot 25 with Melt Machine on last Wednesday. It's the largest industrial sale in the history of Washington. I know Darren had been working on that for a while before even I stepped in, so we're happy to get that done. The press release went out this morning, so all the info should be out there. And moving forward, they're looking to break ground September 18th. September of 18. We don't have a date yet. And then we have extended, we're going to have to extend again the block grant that's the pond by Frykes. There were, per the contract that was already extended once, was supposed to be done by the 28th, which was yesterday. As of 5 p.m. today, I didn't get an email from them requesting a formal extension, nor did Ron Understall, who's managing Pangea for us, and he said he anticipates to start collecting liquidated damages this week, which is $100 a day. So they may calculate that as worth it for them just to extend it, but that's what we'll start doing. We'll start docking them or counting that each day that they go over from here on out. That's not a weather approved day. But once I get that date, I'll let you guys know. They're getting close, but then they had all that rain, and if you went out there, that pond pretty much filled back up. So they had to get a new pump out there. And then we are going to be starting it's called a BRE program, Business Retention and Expansion. I think I briefed some of you on this already. Most states in the Midwest have had this program where the communities actually work with their Department of Economic Development on the statewide level to use a formalized survey to go into every industry in your community and just do basically a checkup once a year. You ask them questions about the community, about their expansion needs, and it's just a very formalized thing. It's called Synchronist is the software you use, and then it's all confidential, but you submit this information to the state, and then they can kind of use that data to say, okay, there maybe is a cluster of industries here who need this type of distributor in that area, and then they connect you with that target industry. So I think there are some definite benefits from it, not just helping and staying in contact with your local industries, but also targeting some businesses to actually come back into your community that can benefit your other existing industries. So I'm excited about getting that. Actually, whenever I had heard about this program and the state didn't have a license, we actually got a copy of it, and I was just going to do it all by paper. And then we found out just a couple weeks ago that DED has a license that begins July 1st. So we're going to start that, and they hope to have your interviews done in 3 months with as many as you can get, and they want to do 700 throughout the state. So I've already gone to about a 6-hour training on collecting those. So I think that'll be a good program for us to implement, and excited to get that going. And then lastly, not next week, but the following week, I will be gone Monday through Friday at the annual conference for MEDC at the lake. So that is P&Z week, but I couldn't get it moved with needing we have 2 annexations on there that need to go to council for the development to stay on track. So John's going to cover that meeting for me. So.
Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Public Services, Engineering and Airport, ADA Transition Plan.
Okay, good evening. As I've been briefing you over the past couple of weeks, the city is going to pursue to secure an STP grant on the 3rd Street reconstruction project or improvement project from Jefferson Street to Highway 47. That would include a significant concrete component replacing curb and gutter and sidewalk. That grant is due on June 14th of this year, and we are prepared to do that. In doing so, however, we're pushing pretty quickly with HDR consultants and engineers to get our ADA transition plan completed. We have met our deadline with MoDOT to get our $8,000 TEEP grant. I think that should have been sent back to finance to get the money back, but we still need to finalize and adopt that ADA transition plan. If we can get that done by next Monday, I can then check on the box that we do have an ADA transition plan in place, which would secure some much needed points in order to get our project done. There is also a location to where we could check on there that it's in the progress. So, we're getting it completed, and I can put a date in that says it'll be, but I don't know how that affects, maybe we'll get partial credit for those points. So I did ask HDR, specifically Kevin Curdy and Scott Goforth, to come here and just present you on what they have found, what the conditions of our sidewalks are in compliance with ADA. I think I've been briefing you to not be shocked by the view of a negative potential view of not being in compliance. I would not be surprised by this. A lot of it has to do with just cross slopes on different segments of sidewalk. They are passable. We are actively trying to search out the ones that are dangerous. A good example of that is the sidewalks are being replaced up by Krog Park by Hancock on 5th Street. We did have 2 trip issues there over winter, and that's why those are being replaced as part of that project. So with that, I would kick it over to Kevin and Scott, and I can run the computer. And
all right. I'll sit over here if you don't mind, but I can run it. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to present on this today. Let me pull her up here. We've been working on this now probably for several months, working with John and his staff to work on kind of a two-way front when looking at this. We want to look at the downtown historic area, basically everything from Market to Cedar, and from 5th Street down the Front Street. That's considered the downtown core. It was considered to be vitally important, so we did a very detailed analysis of those. We went out and took actual measurements, slope requirements, stuff of that nature of every roadway segment, every sidewalk segment within that area. And then the remainder of the city, we did kind of a more general assessment performed primarily with city staff on that work. So let me see if I can... let me zoom in here a little bit more. All right, so like I said, first we looked at the downtown area. 103, the way this was done was we took aerial photograph, our GIS staff sat down, located every roadway or sidewalk segment, located every curb ramp, every crosswalk, put it in the GIS system. We loaded it up into basically either an iPad, or we took our iPhones out there actually. Did the surveys off an iPhone. You click on a sidewalk segment, it comes up, it asks you what kind of defects you see, you click a number, you punch in the number, and it basically live streams it back to the computer. So it was all live updated as we were doing the inspection work there. So it worked out extremely well. Weather was nice and sunny, a little chilly on some days, but not too bad. Overall downtown, we have 123 sidewalk segments that we looked at. Of those, 118 were considered to be non-compliant, so that's 96% of the roadway segments. And the segment basically goes from block, that's one city block, and that'd be one side of the city block. So 96% of the overall, of every segment was considered to be non-compliant. Out of the total length downtown, there's 35,266 linear feet of sidewalk. 61% of that total length is considered to be non-compliant. So though a segment is non-compliant, a portion of it, or multiple portions of it, are considered to be compliant in one way or another. 139 curve ramps, again, 118 of those were found to be non-compliant, 85%. All the push buttons, the only signal we really looked at here was at Jefferson and 5th. Needs to be updated for the most recent criteria that's required, and then a number of crosswalks. There's only a certain number of crosswalks that are authorized in the city by ordinance, but basically every sidewalk that has a connecting curb ramp is considered a crosswalk, whether it's in the city ordinance or not.
Kevin, when you say non-compliant, what is the problem with the ramp itself?
Excuse me?
What is the problem with the curb ramp?
Oh, it's either the slopes are too high, there's too much of a gap, or too much, more than a quarter inch, or more than a half inch of gap in the concrete. There's a number of different criteria. I can run through some. Let me get through the numbers here real quick. So this is the downtown area. This is basically just a category. This is a GIS picture of the downtown historic district that we looked at. So that's just looking at the condition of the sidewalk. Is it in good condition? Is it in bad condition? Is it passing? Is it has some failing? So overall, there's a wide mixture of what's going on. Some of the newer areas you'll see showing up in the different colored greens, darker green being the better of those two options there. But again, once you start going into the non-compliance, once it loads up here, it almost turns entirely red. So again, 98% of all the segments overall have been considered non-compliant.
But it's for a number of different reasons.
For a number of different reasons. So here's the reasons we're looking at. We're looking at run slope, and that's the slope of the sidewalk along the roadway. As long as it meets the roadway grade or matches the roadway grade, it can be whatever the roadway grade is. So we didn't find any sidewalks out there that didn't meet that. Cross slope is a big one. It has to be less than 2% cross slope. If it's 2.1%, even though it might be a brand new sidewalk, it's non-compliant and has to be replaced at some point. Width is another one. Sidewalks generally have to be greater than or equal to 5 feet. MoDOT standard is 6. Typically, I think you got to have an unobstructed passage of 4 feet to be considered ADA compliant. Wasn't too many of that, and that can be telephone poles, that can be trees, that can be mailboxes, that can be anything that obstructs that view. You got to have at least a 4-foot path around that in order to be compliant. Vertical displacement is a lip. So if you get a lip between segments, if a root grows up and knocks that one panel up, is what John was saying there at Croke Park. If it's greater than a half inch, it has to be ground down. If it's greater than a quarter inch, it's still compliant. But if it's over that half inch, once again, those panels have to be replaced. And a horizontal gap is the horizontal dimension of the gap of a half inch. So it's really tight design criteria. I mean, if you look, how often we put our pavement and our roadways in, and how cracked up and stuff those are by the time we go to replace those, sidewalks have a much stringent criterion we have to meet. So again, curb ramps are much the same way. Maximum of a 5% slope on a landing. Slope on a ramp for a curb ramp. Landing area at the bottom and top of the slope, you got to have a 5x5 pad in order for somebody in a wheelchair to position or reposition himself as he's getting ready to go down the ramp. You can't have that being over a 2% slope. The appurtenances would be something being in the way. There's fire hydrants. Often there's drain inlets, stuff of that nature that are located in the vicinity of these that either make the ramp not function correctly, or if it was built correctly would be a problem. And then also located outside of a crosswalk. Even the areas downtowns where you got the stamped concrete or the paver crosswalk areas in the pavement, almost all of the ramps in the city are diagonal, which means they send you out into the street as opposed to going left and right down the crosswalk. So as you look at replacing these crosswalks, you basically got to go in and almost repair every city corner to get that to work. So when you get down to the end of the ramp, they want you facing the direction that you're supposed to go. Otherwise, the way we have it now with these diagonal ramps, it sends you out into the street, and then you got to make a left or right hand turn to get yourself back into the crosswalk.
So do you make the whole corner a ramp then? Is that
the whole corner becomes a ramp, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a number of different ways to do that, whether you fix the ramp or you raise the entire intersection to remove some of those grade problems as well. Again, crosswalks, they're either striped or not striped. Actually, the ones downtown where you got the pavers and the concrete things, they count for stripes. So even though they're not in the city ordinance as approved crosswalks, they do actually pass when it comes to ADA compliancy. But there are a lot of, every corner where you're going to have a curb ramp needs to have a designated or a striped crosswalk, which doesn't occur through most of the city. So we ran through a lot of those numbers already. So for the citywide inventory, we were looking at 139,737 linear feet, over 26 miles of sidewalk in the city as a whole. Of that, 35,000 is located downtown, 435 curb ramps across the city, again, 139 downtown, which received a detail analysis. Once we completed the detail analysis downtown, we met with John and his staff to try to figure out how we were going to do the general assessment. Basically, we were just planning from the beginning to do kind of a drive-by inspection of these. We'd kind of denote the overall condition of the sidewalk. Is it a good condition? We'd note driveways and stuff of that nature, but we weren't going to go out and take measurements like we did downtown. Like downtown, we basically walked every foot of sidewalk, and every 10 or 15 steps, we'd put a ruler down and measure the cross slope. We weren't going to do it. For doing 26 miles of that would take forever. Our general feeling was, since we found that 98% of the segments downtown, which are probably in better shape than most of the city, we felt it was really kind of a waste of time to go through the effort to measure, to do that kind of detailed measurement around the city. So our general assumption was for citywide that all the sidewalks were going to fail, except we had a handful we knew that were recently replaced or in good condition that they actually did go out and take some measurements on. Grand Avenue, Stafford, which was just constructed, 14th Street, which was just put in. We looked at some of the newer sidewalks that were put in. They were found to be compliant. But once they finished through those, though, we assumed the rest of the sidewalks were going to be non-compliant and had to be replaced. These are the areas that they basically detail checked them throughout the rest of the city. So this is a map. This is the GIS map of what's in the system. Green, it highlights an area. It doesn't mean that it's good. That just means that's the areas that we checked. All the pink are the areas of the sidewalks that the city has, but that we did not do a detailed inspection on. So once we started looking at prioritization, how do you prioritize the projects to determine how you're going to best go about doing a replacement? Obviously, heavy pedestrian attractions are the number one key. Where are the most people going to be? Number two, where are the busiest streets? If you get the busiest streets, you get higher vehicle speeds. Generally, you get more traffic. So those are the best safety, where you can make safety improvements and make a big improvement on pedestrian access. So we looked at a couple different things. Like I said, again, historic downtown district. Connectivity is a big deal. Sidewalk doesn't do you much good if it doesn't go to where the people want to get to. So trying to connect public and parochial schools, parks and playgrounds, retail and commercial areas, and different city facilities. There's not really a really solid sidewalk network across the entire city. The downtown core is really good, but once you get outside of that, it's kind of a hodgepodge of sidewalks. So one thing we wanted to look at was what would it take to make a connection to a lot of these different areas. Once you get into that kind of discussion, it gets into some information on roadway classification. East-West Gateway classifies all the roads in the city as either a local road, collector, arterial, or expressway. Anything above the local road section here is available for federal funding. That's a key as you go into looking at some of these projects. So this is generally a map of what the major routes in the city are called. All the colored routes there are either arterial or collectors are above. The light gray lines obviously are local streets. So everything there that's a color is eligible to get 80-20 federal match or 80 federal funding to help offset the cost of the project. So as we came down to the prioritization, again, in talking to John and his group, our general feeling was with the heavy mix of residential, commercial, and entertainment properties downtown that the downtown district was going to be the #1 priority. We need to get those fixed in order to keep the longevity of downtown continuing to go. So again, looking at this is the downtown area we're talking about. Again, this is the condition map. This is not the non-compliance map. So as we go through and you want to set up priorities within this area, obviously you want to start hitting the red areas first and work your way towards the green. Even though the sidewalk may be 2.1%, it's Market Street, for example. A lot of that has got some cross slope issues, but it's less than 5-6 years old. It's in excellent, there's not a crack in the concrete. I wouldn't replace that till I had to. So you put that, back at the back end of the list. But, some sidewalks are in pretty bad shape, and it's pretty obvious where you want to start for those. So if you look at just the downtown area alone, there's 21,362 linear feet of sidewalk that needs to be replaced and 118 curb ramps. Based on the cost estimates, that's about $1.6 million just for the sidewalks in the downtown area. Now, it sounds bad, but 42% of these streets are classified as a collector, arterial or stuff of that nature. So you can split that money with the federal government. So if you look into that, overall out of the 21,000 feet, $1.065 million would be your local match, and you get a $500,000 fund offset what you can on those. Priority 2, again, we wanted to look at connectivity across the city. So we looked at all those available SDP qualified routes again. We wanted to maintain, trying to get assistance for the funding where we could to try to get the biggest bang for the buck. So if you go down here to the map again, and if you look at the colored routes, it does a pretty good job of connecting all those schools, all those commercial routes. All those bigger things are located around those major streets. So this does meet that connectivity goal that we had, and also helps maintain that all 100% of the projects in this second category here are eligible for federal funding. There are also a number, 3 projects the city currently has, West Main, Beaker and Studerman and High Street over the next 3 years that have sidewalk projects already programmed. So those have been left out, so those aren't included in this round. But basically in this area, we looked at 2 different things. Number 1, reconstruction of the sidewalks that are already there. All those colored routes don't have sidewalks from one end to the other. Again, they're still pretty limited to the downtown area. So if we take that, we look at reconstruction. Reconstruction alone, you're looking at a total cost of $3 million for the existing sidewalks that you have. Again, 20% match, 8% federal. To take and put new sidewalk on top of that to get those out to the limits of where they need to go, you're talking about another $2.9 million. It breaks it all out. So overall, for your second priority project, you're talking about $1.2 million of local funds and getting nearly $1.8 million of matching to get that to balance out. Now the priority 3 projects, if we go back to the map, so priority 2 is everything that's colored on that map. Priority 3 is going to be everything on this map that's pink. Those are the sidewalks that aren't in the downtown area. So they're outside the high pedestrian traffic areas. They're primarily residential streets for the most part, lower speeds, so safety is not a huge concern. But they are all local roads, so the city is going to be 100% accountable for the costs that are associated in priority number 3. So looking at those projects, okay, we're looking at 49,750 linear feet of sidewalk, another 77 curb ramps, so that comes up to $2.8 million. So if you look at the summary of the total costs to replace, this is the top table here is just a total of the overall costs. So to look at total replacement costs for all the existing sidewalks that are in the city, it's $7.5, almost $7.8 million. I separated out the 2B projects, which is the new sidewalks on the SDP routes, because they're not a requirement. You're not required to add new sidewalk. If there's no sidewalk there now, you don't have to put in new. But it is noted in the city's comprehensive plan that a goal is to make connectivity across the city with regards to parks and stuff of that nature. So I would see that as you get into replacing these sidewalks, it would make sense to extend in those areas. So if you take that information and break that down further to local match, this is what it comes out to when you look at the local and federal percentages that are broken on top of that.
Sorry, Kevin, I just would piggyback on that. We do, with Beaker Studerman as one of our projects, we do add sidewalks to some of our federally eligible projects because it does increase that point value that I've been stressing on in order to get dollars to fund some of these projects. So for example, if you were to go in to a Studerman Road situation and just apply for roadway reconstruction, maybe a milled asphalt, fill it back in with the same thickness of asphalt, you may not score high enough in order to get the 80% dollars or the 80-20 cost share unless you put a sidewalk component into it. Does that make sense? So that's why it's vitally important. The federal government and MoDOT and the SDP program is weighing heavily on transportation, specifically sidewalks, pedestrian access, as being a transportation function, not recreation, not any of these other items. It's physically to get people from point A to point B.
They consider a sidewalk another lane of traffic.
There you go.
And they don't care what your right-of-way costs are, they don't care what the utility costs are. If you're gonna have a sidewalk, it needs to be built properly. That's the direction they're getting.
So, sorry.
Nope, no problem. That's very good to clear that up. Again, these are straight sidewalk costs. This doesn't include the roadway overlay and work that's included, curb and gutter, that's no asphalt, that's everything behind the curb. There are some curb costs in here, depending on, the curbs may be out of whack as well, but for the most part, this is just, from the curbs back. So as John was saying, before you used to get a certain distance of roadway for a certain cost, that roadway length now is gonna be shortened up. You're gonna have to take it and either break it up into smaller projects in order to get the sidewalk components added on there too, even though you are getting a higher score. In addition to sidewalks, we also looked at, let me get back to that, to some of the ADA facility compliance. So we looked at 11 different facilities. We worked with Washington Engineering in town. They actually did the survey on most of these, and looked at all the existing buildings to see as far as are the water heights the right, or water fountains the right height, are the door hinges located in the right location, are the handles located in the right location, do you have proper signage out on the parking lot as far as vans and stuff of that nature. So add another $240,000 on there just to bring the current facilities up to current ADA standards. Stuff adds up pretty quick. So lastly, the thing that needs to come, and I guess we need to spur direction here, is project schedule. HDR has done several of these projects before, and you can stretch this work out over 20, 30 years. It's not like it has to be done in the next 5-year period, but once you set a schedule, that's what you're going to be held to as you move forward on some of these projects. As John said, you get points for having that ADA transition plan in place. But once you have it, they kind of require you to stick to it.
And I think I would stress a little bit that, I would consider this kind of a working document as well. I know we are going to hit this schedule. We are going to, the priority that we would follow when identifying what do we fix essentially or bring into compliance. We want to use this document. But I would view this kind of a little more as a working document that, yes, we can set a schedule and we could try to hit that schedule. But if we don't, it's our own real self-imposed schedule. We can work through that schedule as the years progress. It's not something that we have a responsibility to meet ADA. That's a fact. That responsibility has been there since 1993. Mm-hmm. So here we are in 2018, and there has been really no enforcement mechanism from the federal government or a funding agency to do that. This is the first step in doing that, identifying where we sit today, where we're going to be tomorrow, and continue to secure funding to meet those goals. So I agree with you, to Kevin, to a certain extent on schedule. We need to have one. However, it would be a working schedule that we could modify.
And we've even had some of those where our phase 3 projects, you're looking out 20 years to start those. It's, you don't put a schedule to that. You say, here's our phase 3 projects. These are going to be knocked out in the first phase. 20 years from now, we're just going to be reassessed. This may not even be a priority.
Keep them general.
Right.
And that's, that's a question you have, is how do we want to look at that schedule?
Correct.
It's a question I would have as well, is I think my recommendation was to keep it a little more general, to provide us latitude, to meet some of these goals. We are actively doing this. I don't want anyone to think that we're not pursuing becoming ADA compliant. It's just, we didn't have a concept on how compliance we were prior to the study being done, or were not prior to the study being done. Maybe be a better way to say it.
Do we have to address the schedule before the application deadline for the next project that we wanted to submit to East West Gateway?
I would say that we would want to have some verbiage in there to move forward in order to meet that deadline. But once again, I think we could make an amendment to it. We do, I think one of the primary goals here, or the first goal, would be to try to move forward with getting this nailed down so we can secure that funding for Third Street and get at least one of these segments knocked out in the next 3 to 4 years. If we don't have that done or don't have this finalized, I do think we take a hit on those application points that I've been.
So the next step would be is to go ahead and once we get some type of schedule incorporated with this in front of the council for adoption so that we can go ahead and have that adopted. so that when he submits that application for that grant, I mean, that's part of it. This is not just for one grant, just to
No,
to
it's
do all
not.
this
Right.
work.
I'm s-
I just want to make
I
stress,
just-
this goes all the way back to when, the last time we had, well, the first phase that we had, the industrial park, Hyden Industrial Park. That's when DED would come in, and then they'd audit the files, and they'd say, okay, where's your ADA transition plan? And we'd scramble to try to get something, but we weren't, we weren't alone. I know that was 90% of the communities that they talked to for those. So it is for other grant projects that you're gonna have, and this requirement's just it's rising up to the surface. And now this is the first year, I guess, that East West Gateway's had it, or?
Yeah, East West Gateway floated the idea of if you did not have this in place or the transition plan identified.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you did not have the transition plan in place, and at least the prioritization completed, that you potentially would not be eligible for grant funding, which luckily was not the case. I think that would be a pretty substantial leap. But we would be, with this adoption in this project, we would be the second town in Franklin County to have this, one behind Berger. So you'd have the smallest town and the biggest town with an ADA transition plan in place. They do have one facility, one ramp into their city hall, so they're pretty lucky in that component. Their plan was like $2,600. Ours is substantially higher than that.
It's all relative.
Yeah, but I mean, it positions us in a place to collect more dollars on 80/20 cost share moving forward.
They've also changed the criteria of when the ADA requirements kick in. It used to have to be almost a roadway reconstruction project. Now it's an overlay. In fact, you can chip and seal a road once. If you chip and seal a road twice, you have to do ADA compliance requirements. So that's where he's saying now you're getting more and more projects now that have to have some kind of ADA component addressed in there.
So do you all have a suggestion on where we should start, or?
I mean, that's as far as within the report of where we should start kind of chipping away at this. I would say we're already doing that. I mean, an example is whenever we replaced the culvert up there at Hancock and Fifth, we had a culvert replacement project, but it's right next to two ADA ramps, and I have concrete trucks coming. So doesn't it just make sense to replace a whole section of this concrete that wasn't ADA compliant? So that's what we did. I think it really needs to focus on your highest risk items in the worst sidewalk sections, because you also have a component, somebody trips and falls, you have an issue there. So that's what we do every single day, is when we get a call of a sidewalk that's hazardous, for example, I will prioritize those. Okay, it's in a high pedestrian area or it's not in a high pedestrian area, and then we'll focus on those. So I think the report does say that, is to move forward with the ones that are 80/20 cost shares. 3rd Street is a prime example, and bite that off as a big chunk, because in 5 years it will need to be repaved. And I don't know if anybody's driven on 3rd Street in a while, but it's some areas are hazardous, sidewalk panels, and the curb and gutter is in very, very poor condition. So it just makes sense that start there and just try to leverage some of these local dollars.
And is that
think it does
enough?
address that.
I mean, 3rd Street's a good example. That's needed, wants to be done, that's in our near future. But is there other projects we're going to have to do every single year, dollar amount we're going to have to spend every single year to do
For
reconstruction?
example, the priority 3 projects up there, which is everything outside the downtown core.
Right.
That's $2.8 million. You can spread that over 30, that's $100,000 a year for the next 30 years, with not even counting interest.
Right.
To get those addressed. So I think somehow, there's got to be a program somehow for the city to fund that, fund some of
More
these
aggressive.
responsibilities that they're locally not going to be able to get federal funding for. I think that's got to be looked at somehow. And
Currently, we are allocated around $50,000 for sidewalk or for concrete type items on our overlay program. That's what's budgeted per year. I believe that was done prior to me being here. But what we've done with that money is to address the hazardous sidewalk conditions. So the issue is that when you have a sidewalk panel that may be here and a panel that may be here and the one in between is hazardous, I don't replace that entire section because I'm focusing on just making sure that we don't have trip issues. But I can't tie grades in to make that area compliant. So I'm doing a little piecemeal patching, for lack of better terms, in order to address trip issues, which are very, very upfront and highly important items. So we are identifying, do we need to replace the entire blocks? We are doing that for sure. I would say Oak Street, for example, is on our overlay list this year, and I know Kevin's replacing a water line on. Well, it makes sense. water line gets replaced, now it's through the overlay, but while we're there, let's replace the sidewalk panels, and it's in pretty poor condition, so let's do the whole thing. Now, that's part of a street that is not a priority 1 or priority 2, but the priority came up because we had to get a water line replaced. So we're constantly looking at, hey, we're here, let's get this work done. But that becomes a priority 1 pretty quick because I already have the street tore up. See what I'm saying?
I do. And I guess my question is, what we're doing currently, as we're doing year after year, we do a replacement, an overlay project, curb, sidewalk, replacing panels, whatever. We may have to be more aggressive on the number of panels, but what we're doing is not enough. We need to go above and beyond that. You're saying there's 50,000 in the budget. Are you telling me there needs to be 100,000 in the budget? Or is he telling me there needs to be more than that?
I don't know at the specific time if I could tell you either which way, just because we haven't really thought that far into it. I do say we have 50,000 if you just do the numbers that Kevin, just to replace the ones to make them compliant. Over 30 years, you're looking at 100,000 a year. Now, keep in mind, that means they're non-compliant sidewalks. That does not mean they're hazardous sidewalks.
Right.
So see,
I understand.
Just because you have a sidewalk that isn't compliant doesn't mean that it can't be passed.
That's a perfect example. If you go out to Market Street downtown, it was not a crack in it, perfectly good sidewalk, but the cross slope doesn't match. It's over by a quarter inch someplace.
You need a different ruler.
Yeah, we say that a
So
lot.
Cedar Street was just done a year ago.
Cedar Street was just done a year ago, correct.
Is Cedar Street good, or do we make mistakes there?
Well, I think mistakes is a strong word, but
I'm sorry,
the
what I'm saying,
driveway,
that we're out of compliance on some of those.
the driveway approaches are compliant. I do know that for a fact because we put those in. But like I said, if you don't replace the entire blocks, it's very difficult because you have to tie back in, grades back into non-compliant sidewalks. So see, I call them transition panels. So there's always going to be a panel that's going to have a starting point as you move forward to replace in between approaches, for example. But I would say that there are sections of Cedar Street that are not, but there are sections that are. And I would say that the sections that are outweigh the sections that aren't. But it's not the funding isn't available to fix them all at one time, obviously. But it is something that we'd have to look into, is rather than take big chunks of street to pave, and just get length of streets, is to focus more specifically on one at a time. But also schedule doesn't allow that because streets, fall into disrepair much quicker than they can be to get called back up. So
I guess my point being, if we're going to do a project, we got to do the project right.
Correct.
We don't want a new project to be on this list if not.
Well, I don't want to say I don't think we're not doing them wrong. It's just you have areas that you're picking and choosing within those projects to make them right, because you've got to transition into these areas that aren't right.
You also got to understand, compliancy is different from 2 years after a sidewalk's in place is a hell of a lot different than it is when it's constructed. You're putting this on rock, you're putting it on dirt, that settles a quarter of an inch, and now what was less than 2% is now over 2%.
I'll give you an area. 3rd Street, for example, we put the curb ramps on 3rd Street 2007. Those are ADA compliant curb ramps. They're not anymore. The rules changed. So there's always.
So we're never going to get ahead of the game here. I mean, it's just not even possible to get
enough
money every year and then stay compliant. I mean, that's just what we're looking at.
I would say that it's a very, very uphill battle to do so. And I think everyone agrees. We are not the only ones
You
like
have to
this.
show that you're making the effort.
I understand
And
that.
that's why.
That's the key thing, I think, is what you have to show.
Physically-
They don't expect you to go ahead and have all of this done overnight, or even 5 years, like Kevin said.
But we have a plan.
Right. You got to have a plan, though, that says, we did address this, here's where it's at, here's how we're going about fixing it.
Sure.
It's just like when the city started the hazardous sidewalk program years ago. We only had so much that we put in the budget. We knew that we had to fix the ones that were most, hazardous and the most that we had exposure to. But we did it over, I think how many years we've been doing that.
And hazardous is different from compliance.
Yes.
Right.
That was different than what.
Two different goals.
Right.
So, I mean, we essentially, we move the sidewalks that are going down in front of Andy's project. Well, those are compliant sidewalks. So I think we're taking upon ourselves to ensure the ones that go in are compliant. So
Kevin, I guess with the report you gave us here tonight, if you had to give the city a report card, I guess it would be a D. And
I don't know about that. I mean, like I said, if you look back at this map, there's a few red things on here where we have some failed sidewalk sections, but they're all passable. I mean, there's a difference, again, there's a difference between being passable and being non-compliant. Go walk down Market Street and tell me what's wrong with that sidewalk, because you can't see it.
When
You
you say
cannot see
deep-
that sidewalk's not.
Well, when the sidewalks were put in the 70s, pick a number, 60s
How would
and
we compare
70s.
it to, say, another city our size?
I think it's pretty good, actually. The downtown, yeah.
Really?
And I don't mean to interject here, maybe this is, I keep thinking of it in legal terms, in terms of liability and reasonable progress, for instance. In a SCP project, and trying to deal with this a lot with your schedule and construction or even design, if you can't show reasonable progress in the design of a specific project, you may lose funding application or obligation to that project. It's similar here with the ADA transition plan. The ADA transition plan by federal law, ADA.
You need to come, if you're going to keep talking, you need to come to the podium, please.
I don't mean to interject, but by, the American Disabilities Act says in that regulation, federal law, that you have to, as a municipality or any really government agency that owns roadways or, in your particular case, public access as well, buildings and stuff, have to have that transition plan. John said earlier there was never really an arm that enforced that. Well, now they're looking at new ways to do that through funding and everything else. But in my mind, I keep going back to liability. What has caused this change? It's barriers to, and not to discriminate against those, with barriers in your transportation system. Well, anytime you would enter into litigation or anything like that because of a trip or a fall, can you show reasonable progress? Can you show that you do have a plan out there that is meeting those? You still may have some type of settlement. You still may have to go to that particular spot. It was on your plan, but you're 2 years away from it. But are you showing that effort? Do you meet the ADA, transition plan requirements through that law? So I think I would look at it from that liability standpoint as well. That's all I wanted to interject there. So.
Okay, thank you. So what do you want us to do tonight?
Well, I would say that with the schedule, I'd like to, I'm going to work with Kevin and Scott to nail down what that schedule looks like. I would leave it pretty open-ended, not necessarily nailed down on, June 25th of 2025, we're going to have 25% of this completed. I think it's not attainable. So, get that nailed down and then come forth with you with a resolution of adopting the plan as presented. And I would be more than happy to present you with a copy so you could read through it. We could delay it. I'm okay with that. I would just let everyone know that with that deadline of 3rd Street project coming up, that we would not probably get the full points, but I think we would get partial credit for that. And I do think that project will get funded this year.
So do we need to have that adopted by the time you submit that?
To get the full amount, to get the full point amounts.
So, and you need to submit it July?
It's June 14th.
June
So we have one
14th?
council meeting in between.
So do we have it something at the next meeting or at?
Yes, in order to get the full point credit. But I also know that there's a lot of information that you may all want to read through. So it's I think we could delay it as well. I mean, I just don't
I
know
would
what
encourage you
information.
that unless you have any questions, I think that if John could come up with a schedule
Yeah,
that
I
he
think
thinks is
so.
more obtainable, have it for me, like he said, you can
the
pass
data-
that on June 4th. If we take a look at it 6 months down the road and just
We
say.
could amend it.
Hey, you know what, we need to tweak this schedule, et cetera, we'll leave that up to John to go ahead and bring that up to us. You can always change that at a later date. I think you want to get this adopted in time to get the full amount of points that
wanna
you can
get-
get for that application.
Get as much as we can. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll move forward to draft the resolution, and I'll work with these guys to get it all buttoned up as far as that schedule, and we'll get this in front of you
It's
as
next
quick as
Monday.
possible.
So next Monday would be,
We'll have
Our
it,
meeting.
we'll have it pulled together.
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday now. You got to get the back by Thursday.
We've talked. We'll see what we can do.
Schedule's the easy part to put in there.
Schedule's easy, yeah. The data is what it is.
Right.
And the cost numbers are what they are. You can't move those numbers around. So what other information or comments we would have would be, really are set.
I mean, the hardest part is a lot of this, I mean, in reality, it's going to have to be tied to your roadway program to some extent, because you're probably not going to go out there and just do sidewalk projects.
No.
When you do a roadway, you're going to do the adjacent sidewalk to it. So that's the part that's kind of got to be woven into here a little bit.
So we're going to have to watch our overlays too,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Overlays.
not build them up.
Yeah, overlays are pretty well done from what I could tell, just as far as just doing strict overlays. You're talking a mill, physically going in and milling the entire pavement section and then filling it back in with that saved pavement section. So the amount that you can get with the money you have decreases because you now have to mill everything out. So that the actual overlays are pretty well, are going to slow down pretty substantially.
John, if we get the approval from East West Gateway this year, what year is that third street?
It's a 2022 project.
Okay, and do we have,
2022.
this year is Bluff Road, do we have one next
Yes, we
year?
have Beaker Studerman, which is a mill and fill overlay with sidewalk component. It's approximately 900, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's a pretty substantial project. The year after that is High Street, from 100 to 5th, and that's a sidewalk construction and overlay, or pavement reconstruction, which is a substantial project.
It'll help us out, right, Kevin?
What's that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on the
Oh,
right
I would
path.
say we have,
Yeah, I think
we have the Bush Creek Greenway, which is, I know, is billed kind of as a recreational type situation, but it really technically is a transportation project to connect schools to our downtown facilities. That's the highest priority.
We've had to do these under federal order for cities before as well, where the federal government said, come in and you're going to donate, or you're going to set aside 10% of your entire transportation budget for the next 20 years to address this issue until it's taken care of. So if you don't take it taken care of on your own, and somebody comes in, and it starts off with a lawsuit, somebody comes in and,
right,
and and makes a complaint that something's not being met. Now, obviously around here, you try to address those.
Right.
Obviously, if you
Got
don't,
ahead of 'em.
that's where it gets pushed to the next level and stuff of that nature. But
All right. Do we need to accept this in the minutes tonight?
Does it
No,
say
you
that?
need-
Make a
Need a
recommendation
I
to
think
on
we just-
council.
I'll make a recommendation to move this to council.
We have a recommendation by Patke, seconded by Holtmeyer, to move this on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've moved it on. So it's yours.
Thanks, guys.
See you next week.
Perfect. I'm going to get the rest of my stuff.
Do you have some? I know you have others. So.
Okay, I'll try to be brief here real quick, just go through the list. Elbert Drive was paved last Thursday, Friday, with traffic opened up Saturday morning. Is that right? Friday morning, I apologize, Friday morning. We are experiencing some issues with people driving around, some barricades, things of that nature. We're working to address that. Striping will address that. It's just, it looks like our striping crews won't be there for around probably 3 to 4 weeks yet. So, and we are doing that in-house striping. I did move some of the barricades around a little bit to try to make it a little more clear to pedestrians on where to go, but it is just a sea of asphalt right now, and I would just encourage people to park where the parking bumpers are. So the parking bumpers are back on the parking lot, just park in front of the parking bumpers, and there should be sufficient parking, and obviously there's enough area to get boats turned around. So if you have any questions on that.
Will there be signage about sharing the road that?
We are, we have not identified specific signage, but I do believe there needs to be signage.
I was on there with headphones on.
Yep.
And fortunately, the car behind me was very polite, but I thought, holy cow.
When you have pedestrians and,
Yeah.
and traveling public on the
It was
same.
my bad, but I just thought signage might be helpful.
Well, we've looked into signage there at the end of the parking lot. It was something we've discussed internally, has been putting up signage at the end of the parking lot as you're going west, to go ahead and put dedicated for boat dock owners only, et cetera, or something to try to keep the people that want to use the trail, have them park at the trailhead here at Lafayette, and then stay off of that. So that'll prevent a lot of that driving that goes down there, because I think when we first opened it up, as we all saw, everybody drove till,
They couldn't.
for whatever, yeah, till you couldn't. And for whatever reason, you know, to me, it's like, well, you're walking there for a reason. So, but anyway. Yeah, so, but anyway, we think that signage will help, and that's something we're gonna look at immediately.
Right.
So.
John, I did have a lady get a hold of me about, you might have talked about this already, about the lip down there.
Oh, yeah,
Fell off the side of it.
the asphalt lip, yeah, we're working on getting that backfilled, hopefully this week, pending weather. But that's the first step, is to get that lip backfilled. And then we will actually be probably filling in the entire gravel milling area with millings as we discussed. So that's priority number one for sure.
I know some spots it's
Oh yeah, you're talking 4 to 6 inches in an area or two. Okay. What we are working with that. Actually, just talked to Tony about that this evening. So that's a high number one priority.
That's all I had with the millings.
We've already briefed on 3rd Street as far as that schedule goes on getting that grant application in. Bluff Road is another high priority project. The bids are due Friday. So we will have bids back on Bluff Road. It does appear we were kind of the first out of the gates from MoDOT on the review, so I would anticipate some pretty good bids. Hopefully, we've had a lot of interest on that project. I know the contracting community is pretty hungry on getting that taken care of. Once I get that, it has to go back to MoDOT for review of the bids. It's a little back and forth project. I would think of sometime a July start date, which would get us into, I think they have 90 days to complete it. So it's a fast get in, get out, and get it open back up. I will let you know as soon as that schedule is more nailed down, but it would be late summer, early fall now. It got delayed for a number of reasons, but we are meeting those deadlines. Landfill liner, we are out to bid on getting the geotextile liner in for the landfill. That's essentially the last step. That project is going to be completed, or scheduled to be completed on August 1st. We did have a survey done. We do have approximately 5.5 months of space left in the landfill, which gets us about 2 to 3 month contingency. I don't have any concerns about getting the next cell opened up to continue. Once that happens, we will go back and evaluate tipping fees again, just to see if there's any modifications that need to be necessary. Keep in mind the tipping fees were waived in order to get that contingency, and it has worked out as planned. Airports, the airport apron project, it's 30 days overdue. They are being charged currently $750 a day in liquidated damages, so a substantial number of dollars. They're having issues getting the correct specification on the base rock. So I have a conference call tomorrow with MoDOT and CMT to figure out what our next step is. If they're unable to perform their contract, we will work however means necessary to get that project done as fast as possible. But we're quickly moving into an enforcement situation. Right now, we are able to get jets to get jet fuel. We are able to taxi planes on and off. It's not so much of an operational issue. The only negative we're having is potential for selling avgas because it is right in front of our fueling areas. So I'm doing whatever we can to work with that. MS4 audit, stormwater audit. It's scheduled for the first week in June. I don't have the exact date yet. But it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. DNR will be on site touring our facilities. Reminder, MS4 is SWIP, so Stormwater Pollution Prevention. And probably the more bigger ticket item is post-construction BMPs, which is a water quality component rather than a water quantity component, which is how we regulate stormwater now. So it's an audit. I'm kind of embracing this as a positive for the city, but we will have many more meetings about this. So I won't have that till DNR comes in, and that is a product of us being over 10,000 MS4. You are not required unless you have a population over 10,000 people. So we will be the first town audited in Franklin County. Fish Street culvert sidewalk, I've hit on that. They poured a quarter of it today. And the last thing, Franklin County transportation grants are due at the end of June. If anyone has any ideas, grants range probably from $40,000 to $75,000, not huge sums of money, but we have historically used those dollars to offset other costs. One thing I looked at potentially doing was replacing ADA ramps, or putting in ADA ramps for that matter. I don't know if I can get something teed up that fast, but if you guys have any requests, let me know. Keep in mind, $40,000 to $75,000, not huge sums of money, but it's something. So, sorry for the long report.
Oh, it's okay. Any questions of John?
Yes, hey, John. Just kind of came to me. Now, this presentation with these gentlemen, we didn't talk about any kind of cost on their part.
Cost on their part as far as what our contract is with them?
Yes.
Yeah, we approved a cost. It was a $92,000 contract to do the study. That was a detailed study of downtown. We tried to keep the scope as minimal as possible. The city supplemented with our own local forces. I had personnel out there doing inspections as well. We do get the study. We do get an interactive, the mapping program that they were talking about. We have that now in-house, so I could keep track of these. It was offset by an $8,000 TEEP grant from MoDOT. So we get $8,000 off of that, and it was also offset by a $10,000 Franklin County Transportation grant. So of that 92, 18,000 was grant funding, which left the remaining 76,000, right? $76,000.
So we're basically, from here on out, it's clean slate. There's no more charges.
I'm not aware of any overages, and I wouldn't anticipate anything. No, once the study is completed, signed over, it is ours, and I will keep it up to date with our own local people.
What I'm saying, we don't have to use them for any kind of construction management or anything like that.
No, there's no construction.
We can do everything in-house now.
It's no different than the tree survey would be a way. It's just a study. Where are you at? Where do you want to move forward? So it provides us that tool.
All of these future projects are open just like any of the other
Yeah.
things. So we can have anybody for design, we can design it in-house, we
We
can
could.
do whatever. Just, that's part of our transportation, program every year.
Yeah, I just didn't.
Yeah, no, we are not.
This was,
No.
if they were part of the program from here, if they were,
No.
No.
on some kind of management a part of it or whatever, I didn't know.
I mean, they would have every opportunity to put in the qualifications if they would like, but that's at a later date when the projects become identified.
Yeah, well, I would think in-house should be able to, you got enough.
We do the best we can in-house with the forces we have. I would say.
I think it all depends on the number of projects that we have come up in a given year and how fast,
Quite honestly, yeah, we have so many things going on right now, and a total reconstruction of Third Street is a pretty large project to undertake. So, I would say, yeah, we do what we can for sure, and we will continue.
I'm not talking about us doing all the work as ourselves. I'm talking about the management part of it.
Yeah.
We should be.
We do
competent
that.
to do that, so.
Which we always do for sure.
We can do that. Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Building inspections and codes.
John?
Well, pretty much as usual, I'm not running out of things to do. The permits have been released for both car washes down at the east end of town. One's a tunnel wash, and the other is where you wand and wash your car yourself. But the interesting component on that is it also has 2 rooms to wash your dog or your pet off in it. So it's kind of an interesting combination. We've issued the first occupancy on the new townhouses down here on Front Street. So I'm anticipating that to pretty much get completed the next couple of months. The South Side Taco Shop down there is scheduled to be opening up pretty soon. Their equipment's in, and they should be calling for their testing pretty soon. We're up on issuing permits on new homes, mostly at the east end of town. Mr. Kleinheimer is getting his building going over there at 100 and High Street. Basically, his little strip mall there, he's going to add on to it, and it's going to be considerably larger. So that's in process. Also, if I know that somebody's called and asked at least once or twice about the veterinarian up there at the end of 14th Street. Yes, there is a permit on that. Yes, he's adding on to the building, and it's going to be basically an indoor kennel is what it's going to be for overnight. I could go on and on about all kinds of little projects around town, but with that, if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Street and solid waste.
Tony?
Good evening. Real quick, let's see. We are going to be putting some millings down on Elbers Drive, hopefully in the next month. Our weed spraying and our summer interns started this week, so you should see them in town. We do have the striping on the riverfront parking lot. We hope to get done in June. We do still have some more conduit work on Lafayette that we're going to be digging up. We did sell off 2 of our old leaf vacs. I remember early in the spring we bought a new self-contained unit. It's due in June, and we did sell off the old ones. $3,800 for one set, $3,900 for the other set, and one of the wagons by itself went for $1,850. We are mowing throughout the city around town in the right-of-ways. We've received 3 of our 5 litter fences already. If you recall, we had some litter fences built for the landfill. So 2 more, hopefully this week and next week. As the chief mentioned, the rifle range is complete. We have received our new uniforms are starting to come in, so look for the guys wearing some of those around town. We do have to haul some dirt up to Berger Field, hopefully this week, depending on the weather. And then, real quick, I want to touch base with everybody about the yellow tags on the cans. I've worked with some of you already about the size of the trash cans per our city ordinance, no more than 35 gallons. So we're trying to rein that in due to a couple work comp injuries, including another one this last week. It seems to be working pretty well. We've gone out and measured a few cans. We've gone and talked to residents, and it seems to be winding down a little bit. So we are having some progress with that. Any questions?
Any questions?
Tony, are you going to have any time to weed eat down there at the riverfront by the courtesy docks?
We can try to make some time to do it. We will have a mowing crew out hopefully before the end of the week.
If you can, make it look a little nicer.
Maybe if we get a rain day and if our weed guys are not spraying weeds, we can run them up and down there at the weed eater.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Water and wastewater, Don Brown truck purchases.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Yeah, what I have before you is the request to send the council to purchase 2 new trucks for the departments. One will be for the water department, one will be for the wastewater department. They both did come under budget. They were budgeted. We went out for bids. We requested bids from 4 Chevy dealerships. We got 2 back, one from Modern Auto and one from Don Brown. Don Brown was the lowest, basically state bid. So requesting approval to proceed with those.
What was the, I don't have it on in front of me, Kevin. What was the difference in the price between Modern and Don Brown? Do you know?
Just a hair under 5,000.
5,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last truck we bought with that, they were about $500 difference. So we went ahead and went with Modern Auto. I'd like to buy them from Modern Auto if we can, but that dollar amount, even the Board of Public Works felt it was too wide to purchase.
Yeah, we want to keep it local, but that's a little.
Yep. Now, Modern Auto will get any maintenance for them and all that stuff. So, but
It's all cities.
Any questions regarding
It's pretty cheap, really.
this item?
You need a motion.
Need a motion to send to council?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Hydrich, seconded by Pettit, to send this on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've sent it on. Thank you.
the water tower is completed as far as the tower part. I've gotten nothing but good compliments about the color. I like the color, but that's, seems like everybody else
Water
does
blue.
too, which is good. We do still have some yard work to do up there. It is scheduled through one of the local landscapers to be done, and we have some concrete that was busted that are going to replace, so that's all scheduled, just to kind of waiting on their schedule to get it done. So once that'll be done, then we'll be complete, so. All right? And that's about it. Oh, we will be back on Oak Street tomorrow. We had to pull off for a couple water main breaks and some other area leaks that we had, so we will be back on Oak Street tomorrow to keep moving forward on that, so.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Finance and Information Technology.
Mary?
Everybody's tall. Included in your packets are the April 2018 finance reports. I really don't have anything on those unless you have questions. Finance Department has the audit complete, as we had heard from Tammy at the last meeting. So now we're just busy working on budget. That's really all I have for finance, unless you have any questions. Okay, on the IT side, included in your packet are bids for the audio-video camera equipment for council chambers here. And I have with me Tyler with Wash PC and Matt Wilson with Wilson Productions here as well, if you have any questions. But basically, we asked Wash PC to go out for bids, comparative bids on the camera and audio equipment. So they went through and compared, and I listed the big ticket items in here. Wilson Video Productions, their bid was encompassed everything, including cables, et cetera, installation, and I believe he said he was going to come to the first meeting and make sure everything worked okay. So what Wash PC did is they went through and compared the equipment, and as you can see from the prices, everything was very comparable. So my recommendation is to go with the original bid from Wilson Video Productions, which included everything, and that bid is $12,797.43. You have any specific questions?
Mary, say again, that'll be how many cameras and et cetera in here?
It's replacement of all 3 cameras.
Okay.
It's including 2 lapel microphones. In the very original one, we had the like 10 or 12 microphones, and that's why we did away with that.
Right.
And we cut that bid down. And then it also includes, hold on, I know what it's called. I got it here. A video switcher. So, does that make sense? If you have any other questions, really, Matt Wilson will have to come up here. He knows more.
Any questions or comments?
Will it help with the, I guess nothing helps with Charter picking up, are we done with Charter, or are we live streaming?
To my knowledge, we still use it when it works, and then that way that public can go ahead and get access to it if that's what they choose. But
We still
I would
live.
encourage people to probably go ahead and use the YouTube channel as much as possible.
I mean, that's really, I think, what everybody uses that I've talked to. When they do use it, they use the YouTube.
We have no problems with that particular channel.
The couple of times I've watched meetings, I haven't had a problem streaming.
We had one, I think it wasn't broadcasting about a month or so ago, and I don't know what the issue was. Like I said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it's fixed.
Okay.
The faces will be much clearer now for the general
Yes.
Oh, boy. I don't know if I
Make a
want that or
motion to
not.
the council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Solentrop, seconded by Holtmeyer to send this on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you're sending it on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Library?
Claire?
Well, today's the first official day of summer reading program. I have the t-shirt on. If you read, you better go and get a reading log, and then you can get a t-shirt. You just have to do 6 books this summer. So and that counts listening, ebooks, physical book, so you can do it. April was pretty busy for us. We had about 9,500 people come through the door. 514 attended our programs, so that's pretty good. That was with 28 programs with a total of 500 people coming, so that's pretty significant. Taught times still are crazy. We get 30 to 40. Most of those are little bitty kids running around. So we have fun in that group. Peggy Warden, that works at Lucy Gallery, she has volunteered, and she has done 2 weeks of story times and taught times now. So, which is a good thing. Our youth services librarian broke her 2 toes this weekend. And so she's got a walking boot. So Peggy might have to help some extra if she has to have surgery. We're hoping not. 76 different groups met in the library in our meeting space. It is heavily used. We have to turn people down sometimes because we don't have enough space for all of them. We stay really busy. Library always comes first, though. Our programs take priority, but there are some people that every month they're in there as a rotation. We were able to do 2 outreach events. Went to Cultural Diversity Night last month and Healthy Kids Day at the Y. And so we hadn't been to Healthy Kids Day as far as I know, so that was a neat thing to participate in. Scenic was there too. We were inside. We had prime real estate, so they came to us first. We have been having some issues. I don't know if you heard, our server died a few weeks ago. Wash PC came in and they rebuilt it and got us up the next day. Our public computers were down for a weekend, which isn't the best, but we were able to put everything back on and get everything going. They are looking at a possibility that we have a switch that has a problem and not necessarily the computers. So our internet network with cables should be running consistently, and it spots out on some computers. And so now that we know that, we can kind of move forward and maybe fix the switch. So it's just a process, but we're working on it. I did buy 2 computers from Office Max, a local, to replace some staff computers that were not up to par, and to get us up and ready for summer reading program, because we have a huge amount of people coming to the desk at the same time. So, and Carolyn Witt is with us for a short time, about a month. She is filling in because Nelson Appel is going to Africa for 2 months, and we were happy to give him that opportunity. He'll be back in August, but Carolyn's back in the building. She said she's excited. She doesn't have to deal with problems. She can give that to me. But she was on the computer for 4 hours today, and she said, I'm tired, but it was fun. So she's excited, and we're excited to have her there. So, have any questions for me?
Any questions?
No?
I just want to make a comment. While I was on the library liaison, it blows my mind that we have 76 people using the library boardroom in a month's time. So, I mean, when they told me that, when I first started, I'm like, wait a minute, you're opening and shutting doors and moving tables 2 or 3 times a day to get that done, which is a great service for the community. And Claire, rest assured that the library gets taken first. But it brings up, is there a place in City Hall? I mean, I guess it's just a public service that we're giving, so we don't want to be too giving, but it also, it works, I guess. So as long as our maintenance and all that stuff kind of keeps up.
Yep.
I guess our library staff is doing a lot over there to accommodate people is all I want to say. So thank you.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Human Resources?
Shauna?
Oh, good evening. Quickly wanted to report mainly on hiring and application process. Just as a first step, we're trying to make our application process a little easier and more accessible to more employees, potential employees. We have scanned our application and all the documents necessary into a non-fillable PDF format and placed that on our website. It was not accessible there yet. Everyone had to come physically to City Hall and pick up that application. We felt that we would want to have that more accessible so that folks that are working currently can get an access to that application. So we are working on getting that to be fillable, where you could actually click it, fill it out, and then print it after you've filled out that application to help streamline that process. But for now, it can be accessed on the city's website, printed out. They can fill it out at home and then bring it into us at City Hall, second floor, to drop it off. So that was something that we changed recently. I wanted to make you aware of. Also, talking about new hires for our summer seasonal, you may recall we did a job fair, kind of something different to give people more access to us there as well. That went well. We had several that came in and we hired from that position, or from that fair. We did hire 24 part-time seasonal summer employees in the last couple weeks. So most of them started last week and some are starting this week. We did also hire a full-time permanent position in our water department. As far as openings and current jobs, we have our building official opening still for John McCreary's retirement. We are still looking for that. We are in the interview process, but this week we'll know something further if we need to go back out for more applications. We did not get as many applications as we would have hoped for that position. We also have now 2 dispatcher positions open. We did interview for the one opening that we had. We've received word that we have a letter of resignation for a second dispatcher. So we will be looking for 2 dispatchers to fill those positions. And then as of today, we received notice that someone in the Parks Department, Maintenance Worker 1 position is opening, and so that will be going forward for placing a job opening available for a Parks full-time Maintenance Worker 1. And we still do have the Parks seasonal we still need 1 person there in the Parks Department as well, so that Darren and his staff can get that done for the season. That is our the hiring and job opening report. And then also ExecuTime, which is our time clock system. I brought to you that we are replacing the time clock system from a Chronos system. ExecuTime is that system. We are through the setup process and moving on now to training. So training will start the week of June 5th, 6th, or 7th. We've kind of set a potential dates, those three. We will hire, excuse me. It's late, right, guys? That's what happens when you're last. June 5th, 6th, and 7th will be our training for our clerks, department heads, and employees. And that can be done here in the Chamber Council, and then it will be recorded, and so I will be able to send that out to departments so that not everyone has to be here at the same time, but it will be a recorded session and then sent out to the departments, and they can train when they have the time at each department. I can come out and facilitate that training at each department, whatever works for them. But we'll do that training. The time clocks are in. WashPC has coded those, and our time clock cards are now in as well. So we're moving forward on that. We will start with two parallel tests of the old system and the new system together with our pilot groups, which are the police department, library, and water. So they will be kind of our testers. They have the most differences in schedules and call-in pay, things like that. We just want to make sure that everything that we need to work, all the different caveats that they have, will work. And so those will run first. Those pilot groups will test both systems at the same time, and then we'll compare to make sure that the payrolls run smoothly. And then after that goes well, which I know it will, we'll go through and get both of those done. Then we'll get everyone live by the middle of June. So that is where we are.
Is the 24 employees, seasonal employees, that spaced out through the Washington departments or just?
Yes, so that would be, the majority are parks employees. So we had pool cashiers, Camp Washington counselors, and assistant counselors. And then we had parks laborers and also street laborers.
Okay.
So that's throughout those two departments mainly. We also had one in library, as Claire mentioned. So that role is also seasonal,
All right.
part-time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I appreciate your creativity in reaching candidates and being accessible to people who might be looking for work.
We want to find the best candidates and best fit for city, so we're going to keep moving forward with that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Administration?
I just have two items for you. I think Sherry had left a copy of a letter that was addressed to the mayor at your spots. They are requesting to go ahead and purchase one of our used police patrol vehicles. I think they've got the details for you there. They're offering a price of $3,500 to the city for that. In talking with the chief, I asked him about with regards to a value, what he felt. We were talking about that. It could be $3,500 up to $4,000 a value for that. So this is what they offered. Harold Engler came to me a couple times about this, and I know he approached the chief a couple times about it, and so I told him to put his request in writing for you as the council to go ahead and consider. We'd like to get back with them to see, so the question would be is if you wanted to accept that as an offer or go ahead and ask for a little bit more, that's up to you.
Are we able to do that?
Yes.
We can accept whatever we want for a
Well, we can
used
go ahead
vehicle?
and take, it's basically, they would be trading it in. It's my understanding with the chief, there's a lot of equipment that would have to be taken off of there. Some of it's outdated, that's on there already. You could accept, this would be and you'd get anywhere between $2,000 to $2,500 on the trade-in. So you can just, what they're just gonna buy, they're gonna buy the car as is.
I see.
So yes, you can do that.
Okay. I guess
Otherwise,
mine-
we'd put it on, we'd put it on public surplus or something along those lines.
And we wouldn't get that $3,500 there. It would be a lot
Well,
less.
you could, I don't know if you would be able to go ahead and get, you could probably see what you could get if you wanted to put it on public surplus. We feel that it's close to the market value, like I said. I talking to chief, $4,000 maybe with all of the equipment, but some of the stuff he doesn't even want to keep or use.
No. So we'd average 2,000 to 2,500 on a vehicle, and that is stripped down. Striped as they are reduces the price. That's why you don't get more of a price on them. And all that equipment in there is outdated. We don't reuse the light bars or the seats or anything. If I would put it on an auction site, I would be lucky to get $1,000 off of that equipment. So if you just take the whole package together, 35 to 4,000, that's about what we could expect, but we could sell it to the city of Berger, the vehicle.
Going to a good cause.
Yeah, I don't have no problem doing it. I just want to make sure we were, that we're going through our right channels that we can sell it. So
I guess we're technically selling the car to them. That's what we'd be doing.
and we do the same thing with a fire truck to another place that helps,
Can we do this tonight, or does this have to go
No,
to?
no, this is just recommendation.
Okay.
You don't have to do anything tonight. We can bring it back to you.
Bring it back to council?
Bring it back to council on Monday.
Council on the 4th.
How many cars do we have to get rid of?
2. This year, 2.
With Berger's one ADA ramp, they need 2 police cars, maybe?
I don't think they have any at this
Darn.
point.
I'll make a motion to move on to council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Holtmeyer, to move this item on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your votes,
Listening,
move
John.
that on.
We were listening.
The second item, John and Darren and myself, we had a meeting with Union Pacific at their offices down in St. Louis today. This was in regard to the fencing for the trail, for the new stretch of trail that's open. As some of you will remember, back in 2015, as part of that judgment deal that we had, the city had to go ahead and put in a certain distance of fencing. At that time, the trail was not designed to show the exact location yet. There was a conceptual kind of drawing, if you will. And that conceptual drawing was a little bit closer to the tracks. It was just north of the tracks. And so the idea was that's where the fence would need to go for safety precautions that UP would want. Since that time, obviously, we've moved that trail and where it was from that original drawing. So one of the questions that John had initially asked him, and we requested a meeting with him, was to see if we could possibly move that portion of fence and move it to where another location where we feel like it would be more beneficial for all parties involved. Because there are parts of this where they want this fence that we felt was remote enough that nobody was going to actually use it. It's going to be having to be built in the woods. And but I will tell you that in their case, they want to stick to that decision. They want that fence to go ahead and be built at the exact location that was originally part of that agreement. And with that being said, we're going to look at some options of what we have to do to go ahead and put that in. We may be able to recycle some portions of the fence because it's not going to be seen by the general public, a lot of it. There's going to be portions of it that will, but not a lot of it. So that was one thing. We also talked to them a little bit about the Elbert Drive right along the railroad tracks as well too. And we may be doing, as another thing, is some more signage to let people know that is Union Pacific right away, just on the south side of that trail, so that people realize. So
I would just add to that the with Elbert Drive, the hillside that goes up to the tracks, the actual hillside just right off the edge of the pavement, that is Union Pacific right of way. So we did discuss as far as who maintains that. As you go down there today, there is some weed situation, things like that. Historically, we've assisted them maybe in maintaining that. Assisted them in maintaining that to a level that's higher than what the railroad's priority would be. We did try to work through that with them. They were basically didn't want to listen, maybe would be a way, because they don't want people on the right of way regardless of what the reason and regardless of who you are. So if you are, for example, a child to go on a right of way, pick up a rock, well, you're subject to whatever enforcement Union Pacific would have. If you are Tony on his boom mower and mowing Union Pacific right of way, the potential's there. You're subject to whatever enforcement they may have. So keep in mind, as the calls come in throughout summertime and things of that nature, of mowing that hillside, just understand that there is some potential risk there that the city may incur.
Right.
If we were to continue to mow that to a acceptable lawn state, maybe would be a way to say it.
But we wanted to wait until the trail was up so that we could show them where the location of the trail is, and if they still wanted us to meet that, what was laid out in that judgment decree, I guess, back in 2015.
2015.
And so they don't want to budge off of that. So, so I'm just letting you know, so we're going to have to come up with a way to go ahead and meet that, because we're a little overdue on it,
There's
on
100
meeting that, and
yeah.
so we need to go ahead and take care of that, but we wanted to get one last option with the face-to-face meeting, just to discuss some options, but that's.
How many miles of fence are gonna be?
Well,
Oh, it's not miles, it's on the,
No, it's not that far.
is it, I don't even know, is it 1,800, 2,000 feet? I don't know. I think there was a budget,
4,200 total?
oh, wow, there you go, I was way under, okay. There was a budgetary number somewhere, was it north of 80? There you go, $105,000.
We're not gonna have, I mean, my point is, we're not gonna have to sit there and use the decorative type stuff that goes through the woods that nobody's gonna see anyway. So we'll get a little creative, maybe even do some creative recycling, if we can, some fencing that was taken down in another place, so.
Okay.
Burger.
Darn. Oh, well, you guys tried.
Yeah, the agreement was in place July of 2015, and we had 180 days to get it in, so we're a little behind.
Oh, we're a little behind, aren't we? Chief, did you have a question?
I was going to say the Union Pacific Railroad Police has given us permission to charge anyone we want to for trespass. So it's up to us to enforce it.
Oh, okay.
I think that the,
Tony, your crews, watch out.
I think the big thing to come out of it is just people stay off of the Union Pacific right-of-way, stay on the trail or portions to the river.
Correct.
I think that's the biggest item to try to get out. So.
Okay, thank you.
And then we have one quick item for you in executive session.
Council comments?
Any comments this evening?
Good.
Okay.
Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Solentrup?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all for being here tonight. Good reports.
It's on your goal.